everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming another tutorial for you guys. It's going to be a chunky cabled blanket tutorial. So this is what we're working with right now. I thought it'd be fun to film the intro while I'm finishing up the last couple of rows of the blanket, but I will definitely have a very cute clip of it hanging out on my couch once it's all done. But I wanted to go ahead and let you guys know what materials you'll need for this blanket if you want to make it. I'll have the dimensions of the finished blanket here on the screen that I'm making. I'm making just the throw size, but in the tutorial I talk about how easy it is to modify if you want to make a larger size or even a smaller size. And I also have the written instructions on my blog, which I will have linked down below for you guys if you prefer that way to look at things. But yeah, I am thoroughly enjoying this project. I'm excited for it to be done, and my mom is going to love it in the living room. She's already claimed it, so I'm very excited about that. I am using Premier's Serenity yarn, and this is in the chunky base, and I am using the colorway Smoke. So you're gonna wanna get 4 balls of that. I purchased mine from Walmart, and I absolutely love this yarn. It's so soft, it's so squishy, especially in this pattern, and the cable really pops in it. Seriously, I can't say enough good things about this yarn. I believe it has 328 yards. So again, you'll want to get 4 balls of that. It's a weight 5 yarn. You could substitute with maybe 4 or 5 strands of worsted weight, or you could do like a jumbo weight, just whatever kind of works into a very chunky yarn for your choosing. And you'll also want to have a couple of jumbo stitch markers to go onto your needles, or you can use scrap yarn tied into a little ring. Whatever you have on hand, there's no need to go buy anything specific, especially since we're all in lockdown. Like I said, I got this yarn from Walmart while I was grocery shopping, and I think that it's like $6 a ball. So this is not a very expensive project at all, and it looks really high quality and like something you would get in the store. And then we are knitting it on 15mm circular knitting needles, so you'll want to have a nice long cord. And I am using these Addy glittery ones. I really like them, but literally any 15mm knitting needles that you guys have will work just fine for this. Just make sure they have a nice long cord that's going to be able to hold all of your stitches, because we are knitting a blanket, so you have quite a few stitches. You'll also, of course, want some scissors so you can cut your yarn, and a darting needle to weave in your ends when you're finished. And then anything that you can use as a cabling needle. I like to use these little hooks because it makes my stitches feel really secure. But you could also use like a pencil or a straw or whatever you have around your house that has like 2 sides that you can slide on and off of. But these are my personal favorite. But if you don't have one, you don't need one. Just grab something around your house and you'll be good to go. And I think that's all the materials you're gonna need. Like I said, I'm gonna insert a clip of the blanket all finished so you can get a good idea of it. But it's so nice. So basically, it's just a lot of garter stitch ridges and then this big cable down the side. It's not in the center. I know it kind of looks in the center on this shot, but you'll see in the next clip that it's kind of off to the side. And then in the pattern, I do tell you guys how you can modify it to, like, you can move it around, you can put it wherever you want, you can add more cables. All of that's gonna be in the tutorial, so just keep watching if you're interested in that. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my blanket, get a shot of it, and I will see you guys later. So here is the blanket all finished up. I literally just cast it off, or bound it off, and I still have to weave in the ends, but I wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek of it, I guess, or not a sneak peek. This is the finished product. So as you can see, the cable is a little bit off to the side here, and then it's all squishy garter stitch. I am so obsessed with it, and Makoa is clearly loving it already, but I'll give you a little further back view of it. I think it goes so well on the couch like this. My mom is not expecting it to be finished today, so I think she'll be very surprised. And I did use the Premier yarn like I showed you, and I used several different dye lots, and you can't tell at all. There's no line, there's no varying colors, so I think this yarn is pretty good as far as dye lots go. But again, you should always try to match your dye lots if possible, but I wasn't even thinking about it. I just grabbed 4 skeins of yarn and I got really lucky. So that's just something to think about as well. Again, I will have the finished dimensions on the screen so you can see exactly what size my blanket is. And I did use almost every bit of 4 skeins, so you will want to get an extra skein or 2 if you're planning on making this any bigger, because again, I used every bit of 4 skeins. I barely had anything left. So yeah, this is my beginner chunky cable blanket. I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial, and if you make one of your own, definitely tag me on Instagram. I would love to see it. I would love to share it. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into the video. So holding 2 strands of Premier's Serenity in the chunky base yarn. I'm using the colorway Smoke if you're curious. This is a bulky size weight 5 yarn, so maybe if you have a jumbo yarn, you could substitute that, or you could play around with some different weights, maybe 2 weight 6s, and you'll get an extra chunky blanket. But for this pattern specifically, and to make the blanket that I created, you will need this type of yarn. This is 100% acrylic. I highly recommend it. It's very soft. I really do like it. So I am going to be holding that double-stranded as I mentioned here. So I'm going to just do a little swatch of the main pattern of the blanket, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how you can adjust it to make any size blanket of your choosing. I will tell you the numbers that I used for the blanket that I made. It is just a throw size blanket, so it's not a huge blanket, but it's perfect for cuddling up on the couch. So for my blanket, I casted on 75 stitches using the German short row cast on. You can use any cast on method that you prefer. This isn't a pattern that needs something totally specific, but I like the German short row cast on, the German long tail cast on, or whatever. So whatever cast on you want to do, cast on 75 stitches for the size blanket that I created, or you can cast on any multiple that you want for any size blanket, and I will tell you how we'll go about adjusting that in the pattern. So go ahead and cast on all your stitches. So for the cast on method that I use, I start with my slip knot here, and I'll just slide that onto my needle. And we are using a size 15 millimeter knitting needle, circular knitting needle. You're gonna want something that can hold a lot of stitches on here. And these are the Addy, like glittery needles. I really do like these. They're nice, strong, sturdy plastic with a very thick cord, so it's perfect for a chunky project like this. So for my cast on method, I go ahead and I grab my yarn like so. So I hold it in between my fingers. This is not a tutorial for a cast on. You'll definitely want to go find another tutorial if you don't know how to cast on. But I will give you a little slow-mo of how I do it here. So there's just a quick little look at how I do my cast on. Again, this isn't a tutorial on how to cast on stitches. This is a tutorial on how to make a chunky cabled blanket. So if you are curious on how to cast on, you'll want to go check out another YouTube channel for that. But again, go ahead and cast on your 75 stitches so we can begin our blanket. Okay, so I've casted on all of my stitches. You should have 75 stitches on your needles now. Again, I'm just doing a little swatch of a blanket, so I don't have quite as many, but that is totally fine. So we are going to do our setup row, which will be row 1 of our pattern, and this is going to be an 8-row repeat. So every 8 rows, you're going to repeat the pattern over again, starting from row 1, and I'm going to show you row 1 right now. So let's go ahead and knit your first 20 stitches. So you'll go through the front of the stitch, yarn over, pull through, and slide your stitch off your needle. So insert your needle, yarn over, pull through, and slide off. Again, this isn't a tutorial on how to do the basic stitches. If you're still uncertain on how to do a knit stitch and a purl stitch, those are something that you're going to want to go ahead and learn before doing this blanket tutorial. However, I am going to really go into depth about the cable. So go ahead and knit your first 20 stitches. So I went ahead and knit my first stitches. Again, I'm just doing a swatch, so I have a bit less. You should go ahead and do the 20 stitches if you're doing the size blanket that I created. So you're going to want to slip on a stitch marker or a scrap piece of yarn. This is going to make everything easier in the end, and I will explain that once we get to the end of this row. So then you're going to go ahead and purl the next 15 stitches. So 1, 2, and to purl, you just go ahead and insert your needle into the front of the stitch like so, yarn over, and slide off. So again, go ahead and check out another tutorial if you're unfamiliar on how to purl, but go ahead and purl the next 15 stitches. All right, so I went ahead and I purled the next 15 stitches. So I'm going to take my other stitch marker and slip that on to mark out the cable, and I'm going to knit the remaining stitches. So you should have 40 stitches remaining if you cast it on the 75. So go ahead and knit all 40 of those stitches until you're at the end of your work. So that was round 1 of our 8-round repeat, or I should say row repeat. And I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys a little bit about how you can structure this if you're planning on making a larger blanket. So this blanket basically just has garter stitch and a cable, as you guys saw at the beginning. So everything that's outside of these stitch markers is going to be garter stitch. So all of these are knit every single row. So you'll knit on the wrong side and you'll knit on the right side to give you those beautiful garter ridges. So everything inside the stitch markers here that you marked off, the 15 stitches, those are going to be for your cable. So I'm doing mine a little off-centered, as you could probably tell when you were setting up the row. So I have 40 stitches on the long side and I have 20 stitches on the short side. So my cable is going to be a little off-center. You can move this to be wherever you want. As long as you have 15 stitches for your cable, the other stitches that you have do not matter. They're all gonna be knit. So you can move it around as much as you want. You can add as many stitches as you want. You just need to make sure you're blocking off 15 stitches for your cables. You can even add 2 cables if you want to do 1 down each side, or 4 cables if you want the whole blanket to be cabled. But the most important thing is you make sure that you have your 15 stitches in the center. Those are the only ones that are ever going to change. And then everything else is just going to be knit every single time. So pretty mindless. So let's go ahead and set up row 2, I should say. Sorry, I'm used to working on sweaters, which are in the round. But we are going to knit every single stitch in this row. So row 2, knit every single stitch, including all of the cable stitches here. So go ahead and knit all 75 of your stitches, and then we will turn our work and begin on the 3rd row. So I've knit all my stitches, I've turned my work, and I'm ready to work row 3 of the pattern repeat. So for this one, you're going to knit all of the stitches outside of the stitch markers. So you're going to knit your first 20, and then you're going to purl all of the ones inside of your stitch markers. So you're going to purl the next 15, and then you're going to knit the last 40 stitches. So as I mentioned, everything outside of the stitch markers is going to be garter stitch, but everything inside of the stitch markers is going to be stockinette, because you want a beautiful, nice stockinette cable. So just make sure on all of the wrong side rows, you're going to purl all of the stitches inside your stitch markers, and all of your right side rows, all of the stitches inside your stitch markers are going to be knit. So we are going to go ahead and knit the first 20 stitches of the row. And then once you get to your stitch marker, you'll just go ahead and slip that over, and you'll purl the next 15 stitches. And I am to my next marker here, so I'm going to slip my marker, and I'm going to knit the remaining 40 stitches. Right, and that was the 3rd row of the 8-row repeat, and I've turned my work and I'm ready to do the best part, the first cabling part. So you're going to go ahead and knit your first 40 stitches until you get to your first stitch marker. So once you reach your first stitch marker, just go ahead and slide that over, and you're going to knit the first 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to play with our cabling needle. You could also use a pin or a crochet hook, anything really that you have that you can slide stitches on and off pretty easily. I like these hook ones just because I can hook the stitches on and I know that they're not going to go anywhere, but I've definitely used a pin or a straw, anything I can find really in my house if I can't find one of these. So what you're going to do is you're going to slip the next 5 stitches, 3, 4, 5, onto your holder. You're going to pull those to the front of your work, like so. And you're going to knit the next 5 stitches, or the last 5 stitches of this section. So with the stitch holder in the front of your work, go ahead and knit those next 5 stitches. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you're going to take those held stitches that you held in the front of your work and slide them back over to your left-hand needle. Now, some people do like to work their stitches right off of their stitch holder. I just find it easier to put them back onto my needle, so that is what I'm going to do throughout this tutorial. But of course, you can do whatever is the most comfortable for you. So slide those on over. And now you're just going to knit those 5 stitches that you put on hold. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And don't worry if you find that a little bit clumsy or difficult in a way. It's very common for cables. They're a little bit tighter of a knit, so don't worry about that at all. The more you cable, the easier it will become for you. But there you have it. You worked your first cable, and that was the end of the 15 stitches. So go ahead and slip that next marker, and you're going to knit the remaining 20 stitches. All right, and just like that, we are on row 5 of our 8-row repeat. So we are on the wrong side of our work again. So on the wrong side, you knit your first 20 stitches. And then you slip your marker and you go ahead and you purl those next 15 stitches. You can sometimes find it a little bit difficult to purl the first row after a cable, and that's just going to take a little bit of patience. Once you get through it though, you'll realize a technique that works best for you, and you'll make sure like your tension is good and everything will adjust as you go along, but it should be pretty easy in comparison to knitting or purling just like regular. So purl those next 15 stitches. Slip your marker, and then you're going to knit the remaining stitches, the remaining 40 stitches. All right, and now we are on to row 6 of our 8-row repeat. We are almost there, and you can kind of see a peek of this cable starting. Cables always look a bit strange at the beginning, but once you get going, you'll really see the pattern develop. So you should have these beautiful squishy garter edges, and then your cable in the center or off center, however you're deciding to do yours. So we're gonna go ahead and start row 6, and this is another easy one. You just knit every stitch across. So knit the first 40, knit the 15 cable stitches, and you're going to knit the last 20 stitches as well. So knit the entire row. We finished row 6 and we are right on to row 7. So for this one, you are going to knit your first 20 stitches, purl your next 15, and knit your last 40. So just an easy row once again. So we finally made it to the last row of our repeat. So that you should have something that looks a little bit like this, looks a little strange, but we are about to do our second cabling row for the repeats. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and knit your first 40 stitches like we've been doing. All right, and go ahead and slip your marker, and we are going to start our second cable. So for this cable, you're going to take your holder and slip the first 5 stitches onto it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you're going to hold those to the back. So the last cable stitches you did, you held to the front. These ones you're going to hold in the back. You're going to go ahead and knit the next 5 stitches with your stitches held in the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You're going to take the stitches that you had on hold in the back of your work, and you're going to slip them back onto your marker, or you can knit them straight off of your holder, whatever you prefer. I'm just going to slip them back onto my left needle. It's easier for me. And you're gonna go ahead and knit the next 10 stitches, the final 10 stitches of your cable. So this one can tend to be a little bit tricky when you hold them in the back, but you just gotta work with it a little bit. Doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It's very natural for cables to be a little tight. So go ahead and knit those next 10 stitches. And then you'll slip your marker over to that right needle and you'll knit your final 20 stitches. And there you have it. This is the 8-row repeat that you will need to create your cable knit blanket. So as you can see, the cable forming right here. Then you have your garter on either side. Like I said, I like mine a little off center, but feel free to make yours in the center. Add a couple of other cables. All you need to really be aware of is the 15 stitches inside of your stitch holder. So the most important rows are going to be your 4th row and your 8th row. Those are when you're going to do your cables. All of the other rows are very basic with your garter and your stockinette in the center here. And then on the rows 4 and row 8, that's when you're going to do your cable rows. And those are always done on the right side row. So you'll know if you're on your wrong side row that you're not supposed to be cabling. Only do that on your right side row. And then just repeat these 8 steps until you have the length of blanket that you would like. I'm currently still knitting my blanket here, so I don't have the exact numbers for you just yet, but I will come back to you on those as soon as I decide how long I want my blanket to be, and I'll share that with you. I'll also have all of the written instructions on my blog in case you prefer to see it all written out. But this is kind of what it looks like once you have a couple of the repeats. You can see it turns into this beautiful chunky braid and rows of garter stitch. They're so squishy. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my blanket up. I'll film a little bit of that for you guys, insert it into the video just for a little bit of fun. So it's like we're knitting together, and I will go ahead and show you how I bind off the blanket, and I'll tell you how many repeats I did after I'm all finished. So just repeat those 8 rows over and over again until your desired length or until you get to the size that I did. So I'll be back. All right, so I went ahead and I did 17 repeats of row 1 through 8. I did rows 1 through 8 17 times, and I think I'm finally happy with the length of it, so I'm going to go ahead and finish off the blanket. So I went ahead and I did a row 8, and then I did one more row 1. So you'll want to end with a row 1 repeat, and then we are just going to bind off. So I'm going to use just a simple bind off because this yarn is fairly stretchy. We're using a very large gauge, so it should be just fine. If you want to use a stretchier bind off, you're more than welcome to. I just don't think it's necessary for this particular project. So you'll go ahead and you'll knit 1 stitch, knit the next stitch, and you will carry that yarn over that yarn, and you're left with 1 stitch on your needle. So I'll do that again. Knit 1 stitch and take take the first stitch over the second one and just repeat that all the way across. You do want to try to keep this a little bit looser, so keep your tension a little bit looser than maybe you would if you were knitting, just so it does have a little bit of give. But if you're really worried about it being too tight, go ahead and use any stretchy bind off that you would like. I personally like Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. That could be a good one. But you only have to bind off in knit stitches on this row. There's no purl stitches needed. Go ahead and just do a normal bind off, and I think it's nice and secure in there. I'm ready to finish off the blanket. I'm so excited. So I'm just going to cut my yarn, and I will pull that through the stitch. And now all you have to do is go through and weave in all your ends, and you have a beautiful chunky cable and garter stitch blanket. I just love it so much. I think overall this blanket only took about 8 hours to make. You could totally make this in a day if you have nothing else to do, which a lot of us don't right now, or even a weekend. Definitely a really great beginner cabling project because it's so large. You have more room to move your cables around and your stitches, and I think it's just a really great way to learn. I hope you guys enjoyed this pattern as much as I did. Again, I'll have everything linked down below as far as my blog goes, so you can find the written pattern and the link for Premier's website if you want to get 15% off. This isn't sponsored or anything. I did buy everything myself. I just thought I'd offer you a discount since I could. So yeah, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions or if you just want to chat. And if you have any suggestions for more tutorials that you would like to see, also leave those in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram at Lunar Knits by Lori. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.